Hello, my name is Ashton Johns, and I will be covering SQL injection. So basic little overview is that I will be going over what is SQL injection, how it works, and I will be covering what SQLi attacks are, that's SQL injection attacks, the types and the consequences. And then later on, I'll be demonstrating how I perform some SQLi attacks using union-based and inferential SQLi, and then error-based SQLi. And then to conclude, I'll show some ways that I researched on how to secure web apps from SQLi attacks. So the SQLi attack, reading off of the official Oracle guide on preventing SQLis, they define it to where essentially it's a PL SQL or a T-SQL subprogram, and the SQL syntax template that the attacker is using is different than the intended author's SQL syntax template. And a query template is basically, it allows a programmer to reuse SQL components across the subprogram. And so, of course, the attacker uses those injections to sabotage, usually with the quoting syntax. And then if they work, then SQL, if the SQL injections are legal, then the server, might execute it without detection, then provide the hacker with unintended data. And so types of SQL injection attacks are the in-band SQL injections, and those are the most common. And there are two types. The two of the most common types are the union-based and then error-based SQL injections. And error-based attacks happen whenever the attacker can look at information by looking at the errors being returned from the server. And a union-based attack results whenever the attacker is using a SQL union operator to basically combine tables and then use a select query statement to retrieve the information. Inferential SQLi attacks are types of attacks where the information from the database is not visible to the attacker, but it provides information on the structure of the database. So that's why it's also known as a blind SQL injection attack. And then there are out-of-bound SQL injection attacks, and that's basically where the attacker might use an alternate way to communicate with the server due to the server being slow, or it's receiving too many attacks all at once. And these are kind of the most uncommon attacks. And and obviously we'll cover that later, but what is SQL injection? How does it work? So we've covered what are types of SQL injections. Now, what are the consequences? So this graph on the right here, basically it's a chart that shows the statistics from the Imperva web application firewall, and it shows the on-site industry distribution. And you can see that the health industry in their report had the most data breaches from SQL injection attacks. And so that pretty much takes a large portion of the percentage right there. So performing union-based and inferential SQLi attack, I'll be doing this on on OWASP Juice Shop, and this is being run on a Kali Linux virtual machine on Windows 10. Kali Linux is a very powerful operating system that provides security experts basically with a bunch of tools to test the security of applications and web applications. And so you could see from here, it's basically e-commerce website with apple juice, apple pomace, and then you have, item stock, and you have the price. And the whole purpose of this attack is to log in as the administrator. And this is illegal to attack a website, but as you can see, I'm running it on the local host. And so otherwise you can't perform these kind of attacks, so you shouldn't, because it's illegal. So you can, in Firefox, which is the default browser for Kali Linux, you can bring up the web developer tools, and you can look at all the calls being made on the website. So this would be the place where you would be looking at URLs or URLs and search, functions to see, what's going on whenever I'm trying to access this website. And so all these kinds of files are being downloaded, like JavaScript, APIs, and the search. And so you can see right over here that we're focusing on the get. So to from here you can realize the in a real world, if you're going after a domain name or specific port numbers or HTTP or HTTPS, you could be looking at a get statement, and you can see that the search $Q, you can inject a normal search. You can inject any kind of statement right over here, and it might pull up a response from the server. So I'll be using this with Burp Suite, which is a application that I installed on Kali Linux. It's a very powerful tool. It's one of the best tools you can use for web security testing. And so, and I was using the community edition. And also another important application or extension, I'm using Fox Proxy on Firefox, which again is the default browser for Kali Linux. And Fox Proxy basically is a proxy management tool, and it allows you to automate your activities with proxies. So now to intercept a request, once we try to send these or request on the server in Burp Suite, we can intercept it and take a look at right here. So this is an interception, and you could follow the traffic using the forward operation right here until we get the get rest product search. And rest it's a representational state transfer, and essentially what it does is it will it basically represents the communication between computers, so that they can easily communicate. And so we have the get right over here, and in Burp Suite now you can view the request being made as well as the response, so that you can inspect it with the inspector tool. And so this is a good way for hackers to implement an attack on the web application, because they can look at the responses that are being sent back from the system, and which again is part of the inferential SQLi attack. And so now you can query, for example, like an apple, and you get back a table like apple juice and apple pomace, and you get a different item values. So so two items being sent back that have their IDs, names, descriptions, price. And so this is an important point in penetration testing, since you're trying to see what is the behavior of the website whenever we throw in a request. And you could see the returned objects are in a JSON notation, and so 9 results come from these files. And so since you're looking for a vulnerability, you're trying to see if you can, what will be returned is going to fit into those 9 objects while pulling data from the server. So, and in SQL injection, you can have a list of payloads, and you can use those to send over to web application to find its vulnerabilities. Payload set is basically a word list of SQLi test strings to feed into the field. So you can see right here, there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that will be stored, basically all of these. And so you're using a union select. So you can we're unioning a table. You're combining and joining table set. The response will return back values from another table, and in this way, this is using a different tool in Burp Suite. It's the repeater tool, and essentially you can insert these payloads manually. I will cover an automated way. But from this, you can look at all the details in a very short amount of time. So you could see that what is returned back from over here, and this obviously there's a lot more data that's here, but You could see that we actually got the apple juice object, and then we got the admin. You could see that there's 9 fields that we got returned, and where the name is where the email was in our union select statement, and then the description was going to be where the password was. And so if you get that a password, and essentially since it's a hash value, you could just plug it into an online tool, and I use the MD5 hash generator online, and essentially the password comes out to be admin123, which is it's not that hard. So now, once you're able to just click on the login page, and now you can have full access because you can log in with the email and then the password. And so you could see right here that I was able to log in. So now you have it basically is presenting a bunch of options for hackers to change the username, email, password, using Burp Suite. And I targeted the first table, which was the products table, and the products table stored like apple juice, from before. And so whenever I union all the tables, such as the user table, those tables contain personal information, and those tables might contain sensitive information like credit card information. So the application layer vulnerability shows that encryption keys should be used on web apps, and all hash values should be better protected. Otherwise, hackers can gain full access to the database, like in this example, and modify and spy on confidential data. Now on to error-based SQLi injections. So using the same OWASP Juice Shop, I did try downloading other web applications, but I found Juice Shop to have the easiest demonstration, since this was a first-time process for me. But to start off, again, I used Burp Suite to intercept the communications. After I logged in, you could see I created you can create an account, and I created a with an email test@gmail, and then password with 123week. And so once I put that request through, I can intercept it with Burp Suite. And so from here we can see this is sent to the intruder again, and then I can look at what kind of payloads that we could see that have vulnerabilities. And so since I have a target, I can use Burp Suite to configure the positions where the payloads will be inserted, and those will be added to the target as the base request. So right here I can set in Burp Suite, you can set where you want your positioned SQLi payloads to be. And right here is I just used a mouse pad to create a list. Actually, I did not use mouse pad. That was what I did at first, but I downloaded this payload from GitHub, and essentially it contains multiple lines. I think it's around 350 lines that they just don't make any sense whenever you try to read them. But each of these are injection SQLi injections that you can use, on a database, if it's vulnerable to those kind of attacks. And now you can use the attack. It's called the start attack in Burp Suite, and you can insert that payload, and basically the payload from here. And what happens is that Burp Suite will iterate through the payloads and inject those into the chosen positions. And I realized that it wasn't necessary to add the position to the password over here, since the stored users in the the database, they bypass authentication, and more than likely would return the first user in the database. So that would be like the admin. And you could see there's a status code. These are HTTP status codes, and so all of these are errors, and this is why it's error-based SQLi attacks. And status 200 is a HTTP status code, and it means that the request was successful. So now that I know that those payloads work, you can just simply plug it into the login page, and so obviously the password is not required. So you could just plug in anything whenever you're trying to log in as a user. So you don't need to plug in the right password. This is the payload simply tested the email, and so here in the using the payload, which you can see the ones that worked, the admin single quote, or this over here, in the admin a single quote, the character, the single quote closes the email string, and then the or is the SQL query or, and then the 1 equals 1 is obviously it's going to result in a true value, and then the 2 dashes on the end right of here will basically comment out the SQL query after the 1 is equal to 1 is evaluated. And so basically, as there's an admin user, and whenever this is true or otherwise, it's still true, and it'll altogether result in a true. I think I just said true 3 times. And so now, obviously, log in before and gain full access. And you can see from this picture, I'm logged in as the admin, and Firefox is trying to get me to save the username and the password. Some ways to secure apps from SQL injection, like input modification. Are null strings allowed? And if they are allowed, how can it be ensured that a null parameter doesn't default to a standardized path, like, for example, logging in as guest, or our feedback statements to the user, that those fields that they entered the null strings in, those should contain meaningful values, and that should be applied to empty strings as well, since they're essentially the same. And special symbols shouldn't altogether be those should be allowed, but in Burp Suite, there's a special decoder that basically allows the user to, or the hacker to use see how a singular quote is encoded in URL, and you can see that it corresponds to the modulus 27. And so that just allows for more ways for hackers to inject more payloads. And then also sanitization is sanitizing user input in every field which is sent to the server, is important not only for SQL injection, but for other scripting attacks. And sanitization is encompassing the input modification and the special characters and things like that. Basically, from Oracle's official guide on how to prevent these, they have basically a SQLi proof attack guide, and they have some ways on ensuring sanitization. And one of them is whenever a SQL statement is used in a program, keep all of the intermediate variables use as constants, so that the person that is looking at the code will understand that those values can't change. Another important note is if the database should only expose to the clients with PL SQL or T-SQL APIs. We saw before how the web tool developer from Firefox, we have way too much access to this information. And also make sure that there's no use of embedded SQL. And embedded SQL is just it's a method of combining the power of the host programming language and the SQL language. And so the code, the SQL, is in line with the source code or the host language. And you can visit the official guide. It's on page 60, and they have just rules to follow. And I found here's the OWASP. These ones also provide some good guides. And that is all for the presentation, and here are the references.